We should not have 500 plus school districts with 500 plus superintendents with do you all realize that there are assistant superintendents in the state of Oklahoma that have a higher salary to assist manage their district than the governor has to manage the entire state? Assistant superintendents with a higher salary. Well, it's always good to be with you all. Yes, glad to have my beautiful wife, Christina, with me today, and Sophia, the youngest Republican woman at every event we attend and everything. So I think this is probably her 4th club meeting that she's been to in just her 8 weeks. So she's already seen a lot of the state, and she will continue to do that. I think tonight we're at the Broken Arrow Women's Club, and then I don't know where we are next, but we're all over the state. It's been an honor to serve in the state Senate. I will talk a little bit about the state Senate stuff, and then I'll put on my other hat as OK GOP chairman. So yes, right now I'm wearing multiple hats. Don't worry, she squeaks. We call her Squeaker. She gulps down her food. So when you hear that, she's okay. She's just enjoying it. So she actually grew an 1.5 inches in the hospital. So for those of you that don't know, the birth went very great. I mean, from the time her water broke till she arrived was 9 hours. And it was about an 1.5 hours of pushing of real active labor, about 3 hours of active labor, which for a first-time mom is really good. And so everything was fine. And we stayed at the birthing center for 5-6 hours. They tested her, everything was good. We brought her home, and then that night, she started kind of grunting, struggling breathing. Christina's mom was a pediatric nurse back in the day, so they'd come over to see her, and her mom was actually there at the birth too, and said, yeah, she's sounding a whole lot different. So a friend of ours, the doctor, he came over, he said, no, we need to take her in and get her checked out. So we went to the emergency room, and they immediately checked her in, put her on oxygen. Her oxygen level's at 70%. Her white blood counts was at 25%. So she'd use up 75% of her white blood counts. They never were able to identify exactly what it was. They ran some tests. They just said it was a massive infection. So they treated her for meningitis. And so that's what they thought it was. So we were in the NICU for 22 days. The first few days were, as first-time parents, it was interesting, but we kept praying, and God worked miracles in her, and His healing power immediately worked in her. She recovered very quickly. First few days, there was ups and downs. The doctors kept saying that her white blood counts kept dropping, then they'd go up, then they'd drop, kept going back and forth. But she came through that. She's strong. Every nurse would be shocked because she would kick their hands away because she realized that's where they were, taking the blood test was from her feet. So as soon as they'd come, she would literally kick their feet away. But she actually, she grew 1.5 inches in the hospital, in the NICU and everything. So she's been, every child is a blessing from the Lord, but we greatly appreciate our little miracle baby, and she's traveling around with us across the state. So we're glad. I'm glad to have that hat, to be able to be a dad finally and wear that hat. But I'm also wearing the hat as state senator and as state party chairman. So I'll talk a little bit about state stuff from both perspectives. Still can't hear me? All right, that better? All right. I'll hold it as close as I can. All right, thank you. So I've been in the state Senate now representing the Broken Arrow area. I know we're in Jenks, but yes, if you don't know, Rhonda is my constituent, and the mayor is not my constituent, but obviously she does a great job representing Broken Arrow. I'm thankful for her leadership and everything that she's done. Actually, it's interesting being back here in this building. I used to work for the city of Jenks before I ever got elected, so it was like 15 years ago. I know I'm not old enough to have worked here 15 years ago, Rhonda, because you still think I'm 15. But I used to work over here in the city of Jenks, so I have a great affinity for this area also. But I've been in the state Senate now representing Broken Arrow for 11 years. We have term limits in Oklahoma, so you can only serve in the legislature for 12 years. Overall, I think that is a positive. There are some drawbacks to term limits. It cuts both ways. You get rid of the good and the bad. Generally, there's more bad that you get rid of, so it is a positive. But I am termed out next year. So next year will be my final year serving in the state Senate. I'm going to continue to fight, as I always have, for people's individual liberties, for their rights. And I know so many of you understand that. That's why you're involved. You see what is ahead of us in the 2024 election cycle, and I'm thankful for all of you being involved. This legislative session was an interesting one. So I have been there, like I said, for 11 years now. So I've had 11 regular sessions and probably just as many special sessions. And we have a special session that we're still in right now, and Governor Stitt is talking about calling us in for a special session for tax reform, which I fully support. But every session is different. Every session is unique. This session was weird. I'll just that's a good way to describe it. Chris is nodding and everything, but I've been through a lot of them, and there was one great victory, and it was a victory. It was something that we've worked for a long time, and it was for school choice, or better referred to as parental choice, because the focus should be on the parents, on the family, right? When we even say school choice, that kind of puts the focus on the institution, and we should be focusing more on the child. And that's what we were able to accomplish. And I'll tell you, for years, I've introduced bills to create what would be an ESA, an education savings account, that the money would, like a health savings account, the money would go directly into that, and then the parent could use it. What we did is a little bit different than that, but basically it's a front-loaded tax credit that the parents get that money, and they can take that money and they can use it for tuition or educational expenses. And so the House passed a bill. The Senate tried to pass a bill last year and it failed. The House passed a bill this year and sent it over to the Senate, and that started the ball rolling. And it was almost like, remember the Indiana Jones, the giant boulder that was coming to crush him? So when I say started the ball rolling, keep that perspective in mind, right? So we started going through that, and so it came over to the Senate, and the Senate said, well, we need to make some tweaks for it, because yes, it was putting a lot of money to allow parents to make their choice if they wanted to send their kids to private school or homeschool, but it was putting a lot of money behind public education as well, and mostly it was loaded on the rural side of things to give more money to the rural areas. Now at the legislature, if you don't understand this, it's not just Republicans versus Democrats. Absolutely, we have that battle, but there's so few Democrats, especially on the Senate side, that they're a non-factor. On the House side, they use procedural motions and stuff, and they're more of a pain in the neck than anything, but they can't accomplish anything because they don't have the numbers. So there is that battle between the Democrats and the Republicans. But there is a battle between the House and the Senate. Even though both are controlled by Republicans, a lot of times it comes down to who's going to be able to claim victory in any instance. I personally don't care about that. I can't tell you how many times I've given a bill over to somebody else, took my name off of it, so make sure that it actually gets heard. I've had a Senate bill and the exact same version of as a House bill, and I said, I don't care if it's a Senate bill or a House bill. I want the language, I want the concept. So I've said, yeah, let's hear the House bill. Let's move forward with that. But that is actually a conflict that takes place, is between the House and the Senate. Who's going to be able to claim victory for this? And then within that, there is actually the battle of urban versus rural. And so the rural guys will say that Tulsa and Oklahoma City get everything, or the metro areas get everything. And the city guys, the suburban guys will say, well, the rural guys get a lot of special things as well. So there are all those different factions and conflicts and different things taking place within the legislature. But I heard somebody, when I first got elected, my first year up there, I heard a senator speaking, and they said that, yes, there's those three groups. There's the Democrats versus Republicans. There's the House versus the Senate. There's urban versus rural. But the biggest thing that you have to battle with at the Capitol is change. That's the biggest fight, is why do we need to change this? And a lot of times it's not even if it's working, why fix it? Because a lot of things aren't working, okay? And so that's the obvious reason, well, it's not working, so let's change it. But the biggest thing is, well, it's the way we've always done it. Whether it's working or not, you hear that time and time again, yeah, but this is the way we've always done it. Well, just because it's the way we've always done it doesn't mean it's the right way. And so in this battle with the parental choice bill, we were facing a lot of those things. Yes, we were facing Republicans versus Democrats. Urban versus rural. House versus Senate was the main thing that was kind of causing this logjam. And I don't know if you all know this or not, but elected officials or politicians, not like the mayor or myself, the politicians out there, some of them have, this is shocking, some of them have rather inflated egos. I know none of you have ever experienced that before, but there are elected officials out there that very much are about themselves and self-promotion and them wanting the victory. And so a lot of what happened was House versus Senate was the leaders wanting to be able to them be the ones to claim the victory. It wasn't even necessarily the focus on the children, it was that they wanted to claim that victory. And it's an important issue. Like I said, it's something that I fought for years. But what ended up happening in this legislative session is that because the focus was on this, and it was a heavy lift, and there was the battles between the House and the Senate, because we went back and forth with numerous different versions, multiple times going back and forth, what happened is it kind of sucked the oxygen out of the room. And it didn't have to, but because leadership decided that this is the battle we're going to focus on, the rest of us weren't really allowed to work on anything else. It was kind of, this is the focus. You can't focus on anything else. Well, I've been up there long enough that I can focus on multiple things at once. I can take multiple fronts and fight multiple battles and do that. But when you're not allowed to, when it's like, well, no, those bills aren't going forward, we're not going to hear that, there's not a whole lot you can do. So there was one great victory. I mean, getting this school choice passed will definitely change the way that education is done in Oklahoma going forward. We've needed to change it. It's not the only change. There's still going to need to be things that need to be done. We need to change our school board election dates. Absolutely, okay? Those should not be on February 14th, okay? We should not be going and voting for our school board on Valentine's Day or any other random time. So there's still things like that we absolutely need to change. We should not have 500 plus school districts with 500 plus superintendents with do you all realize that there are assistant superintendents in the state of Oklahoma that have a higher salary to assist manage their district than the governor has to manage the entire state? Assistant superintendents with a higher salary. So there's still going to be battles, still going to be things that need to be addressed in education, but this was a huge victory. So I don't want you to think that this was a waste of a session, because this was a huge victory. But unfortunately, there was a lot of wasted time on things that could have been accomplished, that should have been accomplished, including tax reform, which the House has passed numerous tax reform measures and sent them over to the Senate. I will say it's the Senate that has been the problem in tax reform. The governor's been pushing for it. The House has passed it. It's been the Senate that has stalled it. So, in talking about this August 8th, talking about extending taxes that are not new taxes, no, they're new taxes. Because if it's going to go away and you're going to extend it, that's a new tax. Well, we are so flush with cash right now in the state government that we should be lowering taxes. And the governor has been pushing for that. I've been advocating for that. We are sandwiched between several states that don't have an income tax. Texas is talking about eliminating their property taxes, which has been one of the biggest selling points right now, is because their property taxes are so much higher than ours. And so we need to be having this conversation, and we need to be moving forward on tax reform. So I fully support the governor calling us in for special session. We should have taken care of it this last session rather than just increase spending. But I have 1 year left. I'm going to continue to fight for lower taxes. If you look through when I first campaigned, look through all of my materials, okay? And you'll see that I've been consistent. Whether you agree with me or not, you'll see that I've been consistent. I've pushed for protecting the rights of the unborn. I've pushed for defending the Second Amendment. I've pushed for reforms in education. I've pushed for deregulation in licensing, all the things that I originally campaigned on. The one thing that I have not yet accomplished, we've worked towards it, but I haven't accomplished it, is eliminating our state income tax. That is something that I advocated for from the very beginning. Now, we've lowered our state income tax, and I have voted for lowering our income tax every time. I've never voted for a tax increase, and I have voted for the tax decreases, but we have not yet eliminated it. I don't think we'll get that done next year by the time I'm out, but I have at least worked towards it. So that's not something that I alone could do, is eliminate our state income tax, but it is something I've worked towards. So on the legislative side of things, there's still great opportunities to accomplish some things, tax reform. The special session that we're dealing with right now is on the tribal compacts, which I'm glad to hear that Sheriff Regalado will be speaking to AFP about McGirt, because that is something that does impact, especially us in the eastern part of the state, but it's going to be growing and causing more of a problem across the state. And there hasn't been a real solution presented yet. It's something that is going to take congressional action probably to address it. But these tribal compacts that we're dealing with right now, if you have an opportunity before the Senate's going to be in next Monday on the 24th, I encourage you to call your state senators and tell them to vote no on overriding the governor's veto. Okay? So tell them to vote no on overriding the veto. Governor Stitt vetoed these bills that would extend the compacts 1 year at the current rates. First of all, the compacts were negotiated by Governor Brad Henry, Democrat, sweetheart deal for the tribes, okay? yes, we have tribes in here in Oklahoma. We can work with the tribes, but we should have deals that are for the benefit of everyone in Oklahoma, not just special interests. And the tribes in this instance are a special interest, okay? Well, the other problem is that the legislature, the way they've gone about these compacts is illegal. Statute says that the law says the governor gets to negotiate these compacts. What Senate and House leadership have said is, doesn't matter what the law says, we're going to go ahead and extend them ourselves. It's illegal the way they're going about it. Governor Stitt was right in vetoing these, not just on the policy, but on the procedure. And so I voted no last time on the veto override. It failed by 1 vote. So they're trying to make sure that they get the 2 Democrats that they need. They're working with the Democrats to overturn the governor's veto. So we need some of those Republicans that voted yes this last time to vote no on this coming 24th, on Monday the 24th.
Is it just the Senate that overrides, or does the House?
It has to be both. The House did do a veto override on 1 bill and sent it over to us, but that's the one that failed on the Senate side.
Is it simple majority?
It's 32. They have to have 32 to actually get it passed. Last time they had 31 votes. So we would have to have 17 people vote no or not be there for it to fail. So that's the big thing before us right now is on next Monday, the Senate. I don't know if the House has been called back yet, but the Senate is coming back in on Monday to attempt another veto override again. And so please contact your senators, not just yours, contact all the senators and tell them to vote no on the veto override, okay? Everybody understand that? All right, so let me switch hats now. Sorry, Chris. Representative Bannon.
Can you explain a little bit about what the override is? It's just an extension for 12 months, right? So it's basically saying that these adults can't get in the room in the next 6 months and make a decision to move these compacts forward. That's all it is.
Correct. So
I was with you on not on.
Yeah. So the governor has the authority to negotiate with the tribes on this, and he had said that he'd be willing to do that after the legislative session is over, which is his prerogative because he was focusing on school choice and on these other things. They still have another 6 months to negotiate these things. It's not urgent. And actually, there's some that have said that if the compacts go away, it's actually better for the state because then the tribes have to start collecting taxes on people from Texas that are coming up to the WinStar Casino and other things. They have to actually verify if someone is a tribal member. If they're a tribal member, they don't collect taxes on them, but they're supposed to collect taxes on everybody else. That's not the way it's happening right now. Right now, basically, we just collect taxes at the wholesale level, and then they sell them tax-free to everyone, which puts them in competition with Quick Trip and Come and Go and everyone else as well. So if the compacts went away, in some instances it would be better for us, but there's still 6 months time for the governor and the tribes to negotiate in good faith without the legislative leadership interjecting, again, in an illegal way by saying, we're just going to extend it when it's not our authority to do so. So there's a lot of issues with it, and Governor Stitt was right in vetoing them, and so we need to stand with his veto. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I mean, somebody will probably sue in the courts, and I'll talk about the courts in a minute. But somebody, if the courts were to read the law and everything, they would have to determine that yes, this was done illegally, and they would have to throw it out. But by then, the compacts might have already gone into effect or been extended, or the tribes can at least say, oh well, we don't have to negotiate with the governor because it's already been extended. So that's kind of the intent, is to try to kick the can down the road to not let the governor negotiate better solution for all Oklahomans, not just for the tribes. So, Mayor Wimpy.
From a municipal standpoint, one of the things the governor pointed out, which makes perfect sense to me as a mayor, they're buying up property, or can, which they did just close on property outside of Coweta, or inside Coweta limits, which our state runs on sales tax. My city runs on sales tax. That's what funds my infrastructure repairs and widening roads. That's what funds my police department and my fire department. And the more properties they buy up and they're tax-free and they're not collecting sales tax and giving it back to the cities, that's taking away from the gas stations that actually do generate sales tax. So
correct, and the property then comes off the tax roll, so that money isn't going to education either. So there's multiple implications on this. And the governor, I mean, he is Cherokee, and so he is negotiating on behalf of all Oklahomans, yes, the entire state, not just the certain special interests. So So that's kind of what's going on right now in the legislature. We're still in that special session. It's been extended to the end of this month. It could be extended again. The governor's going to probably call us into a special session on the tax reform, and I'm hopeful we'll get something done with that. So switching hats and putting on my hat as OK GOP chair, which I'm honored to serve in that capacity. It's been 2 months now, and we've been rolling out a lot of stuff. But it's kind of like when you first get elected, first get into that position, there's a lot of other positions you have to fill. So this last Saturday, we had our first state committee meeting. And the state committee is essentially the shareholders, if you will. If you think of it like a corporation, right? They're essentially the shareholders, and so they get to vote on the direction of the party. They get to vote on certain things. I, as chairman of the GOP, it says that I'm the executive officer. So essentially, I'm the CEO working for the benefit of the party, working with all the different entities. The state committee is made up of every single county chair and vice chair. It's made up of the state committee, used to be man and woman, but now we just have 2 members there. So the 2 state committee members for every county. It's made up of every state level elected Republican. So governor, lieutenant governor, all the state senators, state representatives. It's not the county level, so it's not the county sheriff or any of those. So it's actually made up of 469 people that make up the essentially governing board of the party. And so this last Saturday, not this one, the previous Saturday, we actually had our first state committee meeting where state party rules say that I get to appoint people into certain positions. A treasurer, an assistant treasurer, a finance chair, a vice chair, a general counsel, a secretary, all those different positions that I appoint, and then they are confirmed. So they were all confirmed by the state committee. So now we can start rolling out even more things. We've been laying plans and working on things, but now we actually have people in those positions so that we can really start actively working on a lot of the things for the benefit of the state party. One thing that I've been doing is I've been reaching out to the county chairs, because what has happened in the past, and Rhonda, I know you've been there for a while and stuff. I think how many state chairs have you served with? 3, 4? I don't know.
I came in under Jerry Jones.
Oh, so 5 or 6, or okay. So, yeah. So, I'm not gonna. Never mind, Rhonda. Okay. In times past, the state party has kind of been its own siloed entity. The county parties have been their own siloed entities, and everybody has kind of worked their own thing, and sometimes been in conflict with each other. That's not what I want. Yes, the county parties are an extension of the state party, but we all need to be working together. And in talking with the county chairs, one thing that I've asked them is like, what have you done and what are you implementing that could be helpful and beneficial for other county chairs? For instance, several of the counties have done scholarship programs for young people to get them involved in the party, which we need young people involved in the party, right? And some of them, it's just a straight up scholarship. They raise the money for them. They give them an academic scholarship. Some of them, they have requirements that you have to volunteer in the party for 20 hours and you can get a $500 scholarship. Okay, well, that's great to get these young people involved in the party and have some skin in the game. And so there's things like that that's a great idea. That's not something that the state party needs to do, but it's something that because the county parties are doing, that they can share these ideas with each other rather than everybody just kind of doing their own thing. And yes, Tulsa County is different than Creek County. It's different than Rogers County or, pick any of the counties, Texas County or, Beaver County out in the Panhandle. They all are different, but we need to be working together. So that's what I've been working is to make sure that we have a flow of information, flow of coordination, because some of these counties, some of the rural areas, they have a big fair, county fair, that's where everybody comes to it, but they don't have enough volunteers in their party to have a booth at the county fair. Well, would some of you all be willing to go to, a county fair in a different part of the state and help out and register Republicans and get them involved? Absolutely, right? It doesn't just need to be, well, we can only stay in our own county. No, we need to be helping other counties and other areas and other parts of the states, of the state. So that's what we're working on is coordinating that. Let me talk a little bit about elections, because as the state party, that is our main focus. Now, there's some people that have asked if we are going to get involved in primaries. The rules say we cannot get involved in primaries, okay? I'm a stickler for the rules. Everybody that knows me knows that, right? I mean, in the state Senate, I'm known as the guy that knows the rules better than anybody else, and we have to follow the rules. I mean, that's one thing that differentiates us from the Democrats, right? We're not simply mob rule. It's not just what the majority says, it's what the majority says within the rules, right? So we have to make sure that we are following those rules. So we as a state party are not going to get involved in primaries, okay? We will absolutely get involved in general elections. We have a couple of special elections coming up that the party has been we've lost too many special elections race. The Democrats are much more organized at turning people out in a special election, right? Because we Republicans, we get out and vote in November. We vote in some of the primaries and stuff, but when it's an off election cycle or whatever, we're busy running our businesses. We're busy spending time with our family. We're busy doing things in real life that we don't necessarily, I mean, you all are active, so you all probably do it, but the majority of Republicans aren't going to get out and vote unless they're told about it. So we have down in Canadian County, there's a county commissioner's race that is an open seat that will be in September, so we're going to be focusing on that. And we just had a state senator in Lawton who resigned. He took a job down there, and so he resigned, and so there will be a special election down in Comanche County. Now, Comanche County is probably the third most blue or purple county in the state. Tulsa County is trending blue and purple, yes. Oklahoma County is very, very close to being blue. It's still a little purple, but it's very close to being blue. In fact, I saw a recent news article that said that 80% of Democrats are in Tulsa and Oklahoma County. 80% for the entire state, okay, are in Oklahoma and Tulsa County. So that's where they have concentrated in those metro areas. But Lawton, Comanche County, is probably the third most blue and purple. So that's a Republican Senate seat right now that we're going to have to defend. And the way it works when it's a special election is you have the primary election, which once there's filing period, it's in 2 months, it's like 60 days later. Then after the primary election, it does not go to a runoff, okay? Whoever gets the plurality gets the most in that. They don't have to get 51%. If you have 5 candidates and one of them gets 25, for special elections. For special elections, there's no runoff. So if you have 5 candidates, one gets 25, 3 get 20, and the other one gets 15 or whatever, whoever got just the 25%, they are the Republican nominee, and that election will be 2 months later. So from the time the primary ends until the general, we're only going to have 2 months to defend that seat and make sure we keep that as a Republican seat, okay? So that's something that the GOP is absolutely going to be focusing on and looking at, okay? As a state party, we're going to be focusing on these special elections because it's something that's been neglected. But the other thing that we're going to be working on, and I know Rhonda is passionate about this and has talked about this too, is we are going to get involved in the city council races and in the school board races, okay? Now, these races are considered nonpartisan, okay? You do not run as a Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or Independent. You just run as a candidate. But we have already started this at the state party. We are researching every school board district, every single person, finding out when they are up for re-election, finding out if they are a registered Republican. We're doing the same thing with city council. We've already started this process, okay, at the state party. Then what we're going to do, I mean, you know, we have 500 plus school districts in the state. You know, if each one of them has 5 school boards, you're talking 2,500 people or more. I mean, that's a lot of people, right? They're not all up this next year. They're staggered different times. They're not all Democrats. There's going to be Republicans. But what we're going to do is we're going to identify the ones that are up next, and then we're going to reach out to the county parties. Because again, I don't know who the school board members are in Creek County, right? And yes, they might be a Democrat, but they might also own the business there that employs 80% of the people, and they might have been there for 4 generations, and the family name ID, everyone knows them, so everyone's going to vote for them, even though they're a Democrat in a nonpartisan race. And they might actually be fairly conservative, you know. But I am not going to just from the headquarters in OKC dictate and say, well, this is a Democrat, we're going to target them. No, I'm going to reach out to Creek County and say, hey, here's the list of Democrats that are serving in city council seats or in school board seats. Give us your feedback on this. You guys are on the ground. You all know what's going on. We're not going to dictate to you. We need to work together. So we need your feedback on who you think is vulnerable, who we can target, who we can help with, because then we can use party resources to help you with that. We can get people from other counties, other women's clubs groups. We can coordinate efforts and say, hey, Creek County has said that this person needs to go, that they are defending pornography in the school classrooms, or this city councilor has been pushing for mask mandates, during COVID, or whatever the case might be, and saying, no, this is somebody that we need to target, that we believe we can remove. We have a good candidate. I won't be able to recruit a candidate. You all will know who would be a good candidate in that area. So the state party is going to work with the local parties in this. It's not just going to be a top-down structure. We're going to be working together. So we're going to be targeting the school board races and the city council races. 2024. I don't know if you all, has anybody heard that there's an election happening in 2020? Okay, all right. So you all are aware that there is a presidential election. That's good. Just fun fact. Every cycle that there's a presidential election every 4 years, that's also the same year that it's a leap year. So it'll be February 29th. And it's the same year as the Summer Olympics. So those three things all hit on the same year every 4 years because they're on the same 4-year cycle. Just a fun fact. I thought that was intriguing when somebody told me that one time. So next year we will have February 29th. But we have a presidential election coming up, right? And so that is going to be a focus. Again, we as the party are not going to be involved in the primary. We are a Super Tuesday state. So the election is in March that we will have that. So we're not going to get involved in the primary. We're going to try to get every single presidential candidate, Republican candidate that wants to come here, that we're going to try and get them to come here. So people have an opportunity to hear from them. That doesn't mean that we're supporting one or the other. They're Republican candidates. We want them here for people to be able to hear from them, ask them questions. So we're going to be working to get all them in here. We are going to focus on Tulsa and Oklahoma County in the 2024 presidential election. Now that's going to be November, that we need to make sure that we keep those counties red and make sure that we stay all 77 counties. So part of that is that we're going to have to make sure that we have, there's nothing really statewide elections, okay? Yes, we have our congressional elections. Congressman Hearn will be on the ballot. We have one of the corporation commissioner races, a statewide race. We really don't have a whole lot of other things statewide or anything on the ballot. So we need to make sure, though, that we will have some county positions on the ballot. So we need to make sure we have good county candidates that bring turnout so that people in November not just vote for the president, but they're voting for those other positions as well. All of these things work together, and we want to make sure that they are working together. And so, yes, we're going to focus on the presidential election. But there's something that I am very excited about that I think that you all will agree. We have 3 judges on the Oklahoma Supreme Court that are Democrat appointees that are up for retention in 2024. Okay? I don't know about you all, but around election time, I always get the texts or phone calls from people. Who are we voting for? And what can you tell me about the judges? Right? I mean, that's the number one question I always get is, what about the judges? So we as the state party are going to start creating voter guides on the judges, okay? That's something that's been needed for a long time. We're going to need some help with that, okay? There's a lot to do with that, so we're going to need some help. We're going to need some people that do research. I know you've actually done a lot of stuff on that.
And there's a website.
And Karen has too.
That is researching now. We've got them started to do research on judges across the United States. So they're going to put in Oklahoma was one of the first ones they did. So they're
That's awesome.
going to be giving you all the information. And I think if you look at our voter guide from last time.
It's iVoter Guide, right?
Yeah, no, my voter guide.
Okay.
Not iVoter Guide.
Okay.
We did the judges and we gave you all the ones that are in already, all their info. So I can send it out.
Okay, and I do want to talk with you all about that and see how we can work together with the party on that, because that's one of the main questions we get. And in Oklahoma, we have control of every statewide office as Republicans. We have supermajorities in the House and the Senate. But there's that third branch of government, right? There's the judiciary, where the Democrats still have control. Now, if you've been watching recently, there's the U.S. Supreme Court, where we had a president who was able to appoint 3 new judges, and there's been quite a change in the judiciary since then, right? It can make a major difference. So this is something that we as Republicans have not targeted because, well, the judiciary is supposed to be independent. They're not. They're very partisan. They are very biased. They have made some terrible opinions and terrible decisions, not just recently with, have you heard about their recent decision on abortion in Oklahoma? So let me just explain this really quickly, because this was my bill, all right? Senate Bill 612 said that you could not perform an abortion other than to save the life of the mother, okay? There's some that would say that you shouldn't even have that exception. However, saving the life of the mother is still about protecting life, so it is still, something that I believe should be included. So, but we passed this before the Dobbs decision came out, before Roe v. Wade was overturned. It was a felony conviction on the doctor, 10 years in prison, up to $100,000 fine. It was challenged by Planned Parenthood and other abortion industry organizations. It went to the Oklahoma Supreme Court, and here's what they said. They said, well, in 1910, the legislature passed a statute that said that you could only perform an abortion to preserve the life of the mother. Okay? So that creates a constitutional right to abortion. So wait, okay. The Constitution was passed in 1907. Statute, which is just a law, it's not the Constitution, was passed in 1910. So they're saying the 1910 law created a constitutional right from 1907 for abortion in order to preserve the life of the mother. And then they said Senate Bill 612 is unconstitutional because it doesn't preserve the life of the mother, it says save the life of the mother. This is the argument that the Oklahoma Supreme Court made. They had a predetermined outcome. They wanted to say that there is a right to abortion. That was their intent, because in their thing they said, well, we're not saying right now if this creates an unfettered right to abortion on demand. Right now we're only addressing this portion of abortion. So these are the judges that in the Oklahoma Supreme Court, 5 of them came to this opinion, 3 of which are up for re-election or up for retention next cycle. Okay? There's a whole lot of other things that they have done, but that's just the most recent example. I mean, a high school debate team would be laughed off the stage if they said that, well, it says preserve, but you guys said save, and it was, 1910 creates a 1907, and, it's ludicrous, but they have control of the judiciary. So we as the party are going to be targeting them, and we are going to work. Now, in Oklahoma history, some people will say 1 person, some have said 0 judges have ever been removed at the ballot through retention. So it's going to be an uphill battle, but we need to focus on that. That is the battle that is, we have the presidential election, but that is the battle that is before us this next cycle. So we as the Republican Party are absolutely going to be focusing on that. I've talked to some national organizations that are very interested in being involved in that as well, and making sure that we get, because if Oklahoma can be the first state to do that, because even other states that have retention, it's very hard to get rid of a judge. But if we could get rid of 3 of them, and Governor Stitt gets 3 new appointees, we could definitely change the direction of this state. And again, going back to the Supreme Court, if you think of the majority of the issues that we are facing in this country, whether it was Roe v. Wade, whether it's McGirt, whether it's the Kelo decision, which I don't know if you're aware of that, but that basically said that a city can take personal property and use it to create a mall or a commercial center or something like that. I mean, if you look at all the decisions, a Bergefell decision, if you look at all these different things that we are facing as a country, it's not stuff that passed Congress. I mean, Congress has its issues. Congress, the spending is out of control in Congress, right? But even at the state level, if you look at the issues that we're facing, it's all been because of the opinions of judges. It hasn't been because the legislature has passed things. It hasn't even necessarily been because of governors. It's usually because the judges just believe that they can issue their edicts. But every single thing, if you look at it from the U.S. Supreme Court, it says it is the opinion of the Supreme Court. It's not the law of the land. Roe v. Wade was never the law of the land. It was the opinion of the court. And so but we're dealing with these issues because we have judges that are supposed to be neutral. They're supposed to judge things based on the Constitution. but they don't do that. We have liberal judges that are running the courts in this state. And so we, as the state party, as the OKGOP, are absolutely going to be targeting that and focusing on that. That's going to be one of our number one priorities. So I'm very excited about that because it all works together. This is all about elections. This is all about all these things working together. So that's going to be one of the main things that we are going to be focusing on going into this next cycle. So there's a lot of other things that we are working on that I'm very excited about. We have a great team. Again, some of them just got put in place last Saturday, so we're just starting to roll some things out. Summer's usually kind of slow anyway, so that's what we said. Is we said we would wait until through the month of July, make sure we get everything lined out, then start rolling out training. We're going to be doing training for county chairs. We're going to be doing precinct training. We're going to be getting involved, working with the counties on these things. We've already laid out the calendar for the next 2 years on when we're going to be having our state committee meetings. Right now, the rules say that you just have to give 10 days notice. I don't want to do that. I don't want just all of a sudden, okay, 10 days notice, whoever can join, can join. I want us to be, I'm trying to make the Oklahoma Republican Party a professional and functioning organization. And absolutely, the grassroots are going to be involved in that. Absolutely, that's going to be the case. Everyone, but what I've told people is everyone will have a voice. Okay, it's not just going to be one faction or another. Unfortunately, y'all realize there's factions within the Republican Party and stuff. There's people that are upset at me for calling for unity and saying we have a common enemy. Okay, yes, there's things that we're going to disagree upon with everyone. No one agrees with anyone else on every single thing, right? I use this example all the time. My wife and I even disagree. I think she's the best. She thinks I'm the best. So you're not going to agree with everyone on everything, but we have a common enemy, and that is Joe Biden and his administration in the White House that is intentionally trying to destroy our country, okay? He's not just incompetent. Yes, he is incompetent. But I've said this time and time again. This level is beyond incompetency. Right. It's one thing to accidentally leave your car door unlocked. Right. It's another thing to leave your car door open. Right. It's something else to leave your car door unopened with the keys inside and post on social media, hey, my car is going to be parked at such and such place with the keys in it. That's what they are doing with our border. They have left it wide open, and they are advertising in other countries that the border is wide open. This is deliberate and intentional, and that is our common enemy that we have to focus on. We have to unite behind that. Yes, we can still have our conversations about the little things that don't matter, or that maybe we are passionate about. And that's the thing that I've told people, because there's some people that will say, hey, well, we need to be focusing on X, Y, or Z. And if that's what you are passionate about, absolutely, you focus on that, get people involved, the party can help you with that, but we can't make everybody's individual battle, everybody's individual issue, we can't make that the top issue, right? If it's the top issue for you, we can help you in working on that, but we can't take every single issue and focus on that. We have to focus on the big picture, on what is priority, and right now that is removing Joe Biden from the White House and changing our judiciary in Oklahoma. If we can do those two things, then we will have bought ourselves some more time, right? Because we are running out of time. This is a pivotal election. So that's what we as the state party are going to be working on. We would love for you to get involved. We have numerous opportunities. We're going to be posting some more things on social media, opportunities to volunteer, to get involved. Stay involved and get involved in your groups, in your counties, for sure. But we have a lot of things that will be able to be worked on remotely. One thing that I've opened it up to everyone is our state party rules, okay? We are wanting to rewrite our state party rules because it's a hodgepodge, a patchwork of things that have been changed. It's Rhonda knows. There's some things that are in conflict with each other. There's some things that are unclear. There's some things that this is just a pet peeve of mine, but there's times where it says, okay, GOP. There's other times where it refers to it as the Republican Party of Oklahoma. There's other times where it says the Oklahoma Republican Party. It uses 5 different names for the party within our rules. Well, no, it just needs to be consistent. It needs to be clear, concise. So we are working on rewriting that, making changes, looking for improvements. For instance, we had an issue with one of our counties. They had elections over Zoom. Well, our rules don't allow for that, so we can't recognize their elections because we believe in election integrity, right? Well, but as a professional organization, we should be allowed to have some of our meetings remotely, right? I don't think elections. I think elections should be done in person. You should vote, paper ballot, secret ballot, but we should be able to do some business remotely so that we can get people involved from across the state. Like we have one lady from Texas County out in the Panhandle that's helping to write a manual for county chairs on how to fundraise, what the rules are, all these different aspects of being a county chair. And she drives from Texas County out in the Panhandle to Oklahoma City and meets with people. Well, if we could do some of that remotely to where she could just jump on Zoom and do that, there's things like that we absolutely can improve and modernize. So we have plenty of opportunities. If you're not on our email list, get signed up for that. Be watching our social media. We're going to be sharing opportunities to get involved in all these different organizations, watching judges, looking at rules, all these different things. So with that, should I open up for questions or are we out of time? Okay.
We have about 10 minutes for questions.
All right, about 10 minutes for questions. You were first, and then I'll work my way around. Yes, ma'am.
So, could you tell us who the 3 judges are?
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up. I'll see if I find it on my phone, and then I answer somebody else's question.
I'm going to go back to your Senate hat.
Mm-hmm.
What can we start working on to try to stop chemtrails over the state of Oklahoma?
So the question was on chemtrails over Oklahoma. I've looked at that, but that is a little bit even obscure from a constitutional perspective, because, and then this kind of goes to the federal, the issue that we're facing with the navigable waters decision, where the Supreme Court, not the Supreme Court, I think it's the EPA, but one of the federal agencies has said that that any water basically is navigable water, even if you have a pond on your property, because eventually it flows into a stream, or it gets evaporated up into the clouds and goes into a stream. So the question is, who actually has jurisdiction over that? So I've tried to find a way that at the state level that we could address that, but there's not really much that we can do at the state level, so it's going to have to be more of a federal issue if we're going to address that. I've looked at trying to find ways to do it at the state level, but I haven't been able to. Karen, do you have something on that or something else? Okay, go ahead though. Yes, so with the emails and everything, I know there's some people that have said that it's connected to AJ, and it could be, I don't know. I've heard his phone number is connected to it. AJ and I did not talk before the election, other than I called both him and Sean and told them I was getting in the race. That was the only conversation that he and I had. Whenever he did at the convention go up and say, I encourage all my people to vote for Nathan, I went to him right away and said that was wrong, you should not have done it. So that was the conversation that he and I had. There was no coordination between AJ and I or Sean and I throughout it.
Those threats are still going out.
But on whoever the Chickasaw Warrior is, or Chickasaw Warrior, Cherokee Maiden, or vice versa, whoever that is, I have condemned that, and I said that's not the way. I don't agree with doing things with anonymity. I don't agree with the dark money stuff that's been happening in primaries. We've all seen those things, the mailers that come out that has a P.O. box or some address that nobody knows where it's coming from. No address at all. I've condemned those things. I've condemned the Cherokee Warrior and Cherokee Maiden. I don't agree with what they're doing. I don't agree with what they're saying. I think it's cowardly to hide behind an anonymous account like that, and so I've condemned it. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot that I can do because I don't know who it is. I have publicly condemned it. I continue to do that. I disagree with what they're trying to do, but whoever it is, they're not working with me or for me, and I will not work with them or for them because I disagree with what they're doing and the way they're going about it.
Did you say all the judges have been by Brad Henry that are coming up for election?
I think 2 of them might have been Brad Henry, and they were all Democrat appointees, but I think maybe just 2 of them were Brad Henry. Christy's looking at it.
James Edmondson was Brad Henry.
Edmondson, yes.
Doug Combs, Brad Henry. Norma Gurrick, Brad Henry.
Yeah, I think those are the 3 that are up.
Would you repeat that, please? Yeah.
Edmondson, and then
Edmondson,
Combs,
Norma Gurrick.
Gurich.
They're the only judges up for
Those are the 3 up for retention, I believe. Yeah.
So you don't even really need to know their names.
Yeah, because it'll just those are the only 3 that are up. So yeah, you just vote no on all 3 of them. So yeah. Yes, ma'am, in the back, and then I'll come over to you, Donna.
What is the status of 612 then?
So the status of 612 is right now the Supreme Court said that can't be in effect, but the 1910 law is in effect. So abortions are still prohibited in Oklahoma other than to preserve the life of the mother under the 1910 law. However, The issue that we're facing right now is almost 50% or more of abortions are being done chemically now, where they're mailing in the chemicals and aborting the fetus. And one of the biggest issues is that then is getting flushed into our water supplies, not just the infant, not just the child, but the chemicals and stuff. So this is an environmental issue, actually. There's major concerns with that. So we are looking at, I just met with a national organization on what we can do here in Oklahoma to address the chemical abortion side of things as well, because it can still be done and nobody really knows that it's being done because it's being shipped from out of state. So we are looking to see how we can address that, because that is an issue. Now, the abortion clinics have stopped performing abortions, and they were the ones that were doing issuing the chemicals. So they've stopped their services here, but now a lot of it's being shipped from out of state here. So we're still working to address it. It's still an issue. Donna, you were next.
In my opinion, we need to support Caroline Wall because she
Yes.
dismissed the reparations bill.
Yeah, Judge.
Gone to appeal, but she did a good thing.
Judge Wall has done a phenomenal job up there. So yes, if you have the opportunity to send her a note of encouragement, Judge Carolyn Wall, please do that. Yes, so she asked about the purchasing of our land, especially foreign nationals, a lot of the Chinese. A lot of that has been done with the illegal marijuana grows. So that's something that has been able to be addressed through OBNDD, the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, as well as the Medical Marijuana Authority. They've looked into some of that stuff. Our Constitution prohibits it, but what's happening is, you know how the left talks about straw purchases, where somebody that can't buy a gun will find somebody that can buy the gun and buy it for them and give it to them. It's essentially happening through that, is they will set up an LLC, they'll find an Oklahoman or whatever to buy the property under it, and they're just the name on it, but nothing else. So what we've tried to do, several of us have worked on this. Senator Bullard had a bill this year that would require that you actually sign an affidavit to say that you are not purchasing this land in violation of the Oklahoma Constitution for any other entity or organization or foreign national that cannot legally purchase the land. That way, if they sign that affidavit, the purchase still goes through. That gives the opportunity for the Attorney General or District Attorney or someone else to investigate, and then if it's found out, then that person is guilty of perjury. And so that's the way that we can go after the people that are doing the straw purchase. And then because of that, then that property was purchased illegally and everything, so that property could be retaken, recovered. So it is, we've been trying to find the best method to go about it, because it is prohibited in our Constitution, but it was basically an enforcement aspect. How do we actually enforce this? So we have made... Yes. Yes. So we are working on that. It's going to have to be something that's going to have to be addressed for a long time. It's not just an Oklahoma issue, but it's definitely for sure an issue that we're facing here in Oklahoma. So we are working on that, on the Chinese purchase of lands. Can I say one thing in closing then? Because this is something that I just started doing probably 2 years ago now. We face a lot of issues in this state, in this country. For those of you that don't know my background, I actually grew up overseas. My parents are missionaries. My wife actually grew up overseas. Her parents are missionaries. So we've seen other parts of the world. We've seen the challenges. We've seen the direction that the left is trying to take our country. They're trying to destroy our country. We fully understand that. So we are in this battle, absolutely. America is still the best place on earth. We have our problems, just like every country. We have people. Where there's people, there's going to be problems, right? And so, but we are in the greatest country on the planet, and they are intentionally trying to destroy our country. Absolutely. I fully believe that the Republican Party is the best method to save our republic. That's why I'm involved in the Republican Party. I appreciate you all being involved in the Republican Party, being involved in your groups and your organizations. That's why I'm in that fight. As a state senator, it's an honor and privilege to fight for your individual rights. I believe that under the Declaration, we have certain God-given rights that are granted to us by our Creator, and it's government's job to protect those rights. So that's why I serve in that capacity. And it's an honor to serve in both of those areas. But one thing I always like to point out is that, yes, those are areas that we all can and are and should be involved with, but the most important thing is that people have to have a change of heart. And we in the Oklahoma legislature, I've said this for years, I could probably introduce a bill and pass it through the legislature saying that everybody must be a Christian. And it would probably get passed in Oklahoma, right? But that's not sufficient just to tell people they have to do that. People have to have that actual change of heart. And so for me, what that means is by actually having that personal relationship with Jesus Christ, receiving him as your Lord and Savior. So I don't presume that just because everyone here is an Oklahoman, is a Republican, that means that they have that relationship. But I always offer that if you don't know what that means to have that relationship, to have salvation through Jesus Christ, that's foundational. That's where it starts. People have to have that change of heart first. And so if you want to have that conversation afterwards, I'm more than willing to have that conversation with you, either privately or with a phone conversation. But if you are a believer, the other thing I would ask is that you make sure that you are sharing that good news, because there is so much bad news out there. Talk to your neighbors. It's what do they say? They say you're not supposed to talk about politics and religion, right? Well, the left does that everywhere, every day. They nonstop, and that's why we've seen young people trending that direction. That's why we've seen corporations go in that direction, because they're not hearing from us. It's not enough to be the silent majority. We need to be vocal. We need to be the vocal majority. We need to share our faith, not be afraid of offending someone, because the truth is what will set them free. But if they haven't heard the truth, they're not going to be set free. So I always encourage everyone, again, if you want to have that conversation with me, I'm more than willing. If you are a Christian, if you are a believer, I ask you to please share that good news. Yes, talk about the other issues that we're facing, but let's not neglect that most important thing of all, salvation through Jesus. So I would just like to close with that. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you all today. Thank you.